Master. Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Saya Tinggi Kumar, Excellencies, Menteri, Pelasegaran dan Xavier, tetamu kehormat, dan saya muliakan Tuan Usaha Sambatan, rakan-rakan saya muliakan. We are assembled here, of course, to honor a great soul, the Mahatma. But there is an apparent contradiction into this world. Some refer to this as the post-normal times. Some with very clear reference to post-truth. There is clearly an application of moral precepts, the complete disregard for ethical and moral values in politics. We want, or at least here we share the sentiment, to ensure that Gandhiji remains relevant. Platitudes aside, this is of course a major challenge. Excellency Kumar made reference to post-World War. But where there was a consensus, then the racism is dead. Never again should we return to Nazism or fascism of Mussolini. But today in Europe, there is an apparent rise of fascism. Countries would register minimum 28% of popular vote, maximum over 48% of fascist appeals. So, other than the apparent pleasantries and platitudes, we must take stock of the stark reality that there must be a serious call for us Malaysians too, because at least in this age of despair, we have proven to the world that there is that hope, where Malays, Chinese, Indians, Ibans and Kadazans played a significant role challenging the odds and coming together as a force to effect change in this country only with one interest, that we as a nation, we as Malaysians must effect change. Enough of racism, enough of corruption, enough of religious bigotry, but bring up a new spirit and a new Malaysia. Of course, we pick and choose. Take a little here, leave behind a little there, of the profundity of the ideas that Gandhi illuminated. I'm personally a bit biased. I'm a great student of Gandhi. And Gandhi's grandson, Rajmohan Gandhi, is a close family friend of ours. Rajmohan and his wife, Usha, has been a very, very valued and dear friend. And that gives an added impact to what I, Aziza, and the family share. Gandhi thought is too broad a topic for me to presume to address in the short moment, but we are together here. But there is one theme that I would like to focus, not just because it has special relevance to me, but because it is central to his entire philosophy. That theme is forgiveness. How do we deal with the legacy of injustice, oppression, and dispossession? How do we come to terms to the debilitating aftermath of great wrongs done to the innocent? How do we create the conditions for positive, constructive change that is fair and equitable for all? This is exactly the role Gandhi assigned to forgiveness. Forgiveness is a liberating force, perfectly in tune with his concept of ahimsa and satyagraha, an expression of the power of love to eradicate hatred and evil. Famously, Gandhi wrote, "The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is an attribute of the strong. It requires strength to see beyond the responsibility of others for injustice. It requires strength to understand how we all contribute to the creation of circumstance and condition. It requires us to acknowledge our presence in the moment when injustice was done. We cannot ask others to see clearly their responsibility without looking clearly at ourselves. Forgiveness begins with ourselves before we can extend it to others." I'm sure that Gandhi's statement is right, because forgiveness is not easy. I mean, no pretensions. It is not quick. It is very painful. It is not simple. It's full of misery for you and the family. But it is not. And it is never only a personal matter. Forgiveness involves those others around us who care for us and about whom we care. Forgiveness is an imperative that many find difficult to comprehend. I'm not saying this to receive more accolades for me. I'm not Gandhi, who could perform this task with such confidence and tenacity. For me personally, as I said, and may I reiterate, it is extremely arduous and painful. But forgiveness, like love, being unconditional, creates new conditions, not just for the individual, but also for the sake of society at large. After all, who is Anwar to bemoan his little sufferings compared to what the nation is facing and encountering? So, when there is this common resolve to state unequivocally that this nation must be saved, and it takes courage and conviction of all forces possible who believe in change and reform, who believe in justice and fairness, who wants to dismantle the corrupt order, then these principles are more profound and must be endorsed and supported, and therefore the personal hardship must be relegated. And that was precisely my decision, very much in the Gandhi ideals, but certainly not to actualize what he personally had endured. His resolve was uncompromising in defending these principles. Mine was more arduous, difficult. It took time, but I am grateful to Allah, grateful to my family and my colleagues that they share these principles, that finally Malaysians are far more important than individuals. I wish to share with you today two circumstances in the 20th century where Gandhian philosophy has played a major role, and in both we learn something important about forgiveness. Take the civil rights movement in America. It used Gandhi's tactic of peaceful non-cooperation, refusal to be cowed, as a self-sacrifice that made oppression clear to the oppressors. It demonstrated to the world the brutality and racism that was the legacy of transatlantic slavery. Black Americans were asked to forgive their oppressors, to create the conditions to more fully participate in the social, political, and economic life of their communities for the common good. Someone had to be strong. Those many someones were the black community. They had to show they were better than the oppressors. The trouble was and is, white America has yet to accept the noble magnanimity and respond in kind, and so Black Lives Matter is the clarion call of our time, a time when forgiveness is once again needed. The other great Gandhian movement or moment came when the political logic of apartheid was acknowledged to have run its course. I made reference to Prakash Mishra's latest book on Gandhi. The first volume ends his experience and struggle in South Africa, which had such a compelling influence in his struggle later in India. How was a society to be rescued from its own history? The answer was by turning to Gandhian forgiveness, institutionalized as the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. As the head of that commission, Archbishop Desmond Tutu said, forgiveness was not forgetting, but understanding what could not be forgotten. Only honesty, truthful acknowledgement could open the eyes of South Africans to the appalling inequalities and attendant injustices of the lives they have lived. Societies in times of trouble, and when in a society not in trouble, need forgiveness to create the platform upon which the common good can be pursued. Lingering resentments, factional squabbles, and unresolved animus eat away, erode that common bond. We need to pursue the common good openly, tolerantly, inclusively. The fulfillment of such forgiveness is what we must hope for all society. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, are we prepared to live in the aftermath of the horrors that we have created? To live with the lingering resentments and the distrust that creates? Or can we be strong enough to take the path of true forgiveness and open ourselves to a better future for all? I know precisely what Gandhi would have us to do. Terima kasih.